Welcome back, dear learners. Today we are going to start with the third lecture for second unit, Constructs of C. Today we'll have a little bit more discussion about the data types and storage classes. But before we begin, let us have a brief recap of what all was covered in the last lecture. So we saw the process of writing a C program, then we discussed the C character set, C tokens like what are keywords, what are identifiers and variables, and what are constants. Then we saw the basic data types in C like int, char, float, double. So today's objective is that we are going to revisit these data types and then we are going to learn some more keywords which can help us in modifying the range of those data types and also modify the amount of space that they occupy in the memory. So we have some keywords that are going to modify those characteristics or attributes for that data type. And then we're going to look at storage classes, which we have four: auto, register, extern, and static. So let us look at these data types and how can we modify their range in terms of the valid values that they can hold as well as the amount of space that they are going to occupy in the memory. So integers can be modified with the help of keywords like long and short. Now when we talk about integers, so C offers a variation to integer data type by using keywords long, short. Based on the 16-bit or 32-bit compiler, the size of each variable varies. Like if you're talking about a 16-bit compiler, like we have Turbo C or C++, then the value or the amount of storage that a short type would require is 2 bytes. So these are all in bytes. Int will require 2 bytes and long is going to require 4 bytes. And similarly, it is given for 32-bit like Visual C++. It is 2, 4 and 4 for short, int, long respectively. So some generic rules are that short is at least going to be 2 bytes big. So it is going to occupy at least 2 bytes in memory. Long is going to have at least 4 bytes in memory. Short can never ever be bigger than int. And similarly, int can never be bigger than long. Now, how do we declare these? So as you can see, the first declaration here is long int I, and then I have written something like long ABC. So this is like the second one is like a shorthand notation where you don't need to even mention int. If you write long itself, it means that you're trying to increase the range of the integer values and it knows that it is going to be of integer type. So you don't need to write int in between. Obviously, the shorthand is more popular because it is less words, but yes, both are correct. So you could write that as long int I, or you can skip that int and you can go ahead and name it as long ABC. Now, same goes for short. Short int j is also valid, and short xyz, where we have omitted this int, this is also valid. Integers can also be signed and unsigned. So we know that integers can store either positive value or negative value. But what if I am in a situation where I only need to store positive values? Then the negative range would be wasted because I'm never going to use that, right? So we all saw in the previous lecture that the range for integer is from -32768 to 32767 in positive sign. That is by default the range for a 16-bit compiler. But if I'm not wanting to use these negative numbers or range, then what I can do is I can declare my variable as unsigned integer. So when I say unsigned, it means now our range is going to be modified and it will range from 0 to 65535. So here there is no sign bit. Okay, so the entire bits are being used to store the actual number. By default, we know that a number is integer, especially is signed because it is able to store negative as well as positive values, right? But if I have an operation where I'm trying to count something, right? There I will never need a negative number because count can not go into negative side. There I can declare my counter to be of unsigned type so that the range is only towards the positive. So when values stored by integer and we want it to be always positive, right? Then we can use the keyword unsigned. So here the declaration is unsigned int, suppose number of students. So either the students would be 0 for a particular course, or they're going to be a positive number. Student number cannot be negative, right? And secondly, we can again skip the int keyword here. So I can also say unsigned I can totally skip the int, just like I was able to do that for short and long. So, with the above declaration, the permissible range of integer values for a 16-bit compiler will shift from -3 to 768 to positive 3 to 767 to the actual range of positive numbers that will be from 0 to 65535. So that is the utility. We are using that same space to store more range of positive numbers as per our need. Similarly, you can do that same for your characters also. So like I have chars, and char can be signed or unsigned. So unsigned and signed char both occupy 1 byte each in a 16-bit compiler. Signed range for char is from -128 to 127, whereas unsigned char has a range from 0 to 255. So you can use these keywords to modify your range or the permissible values. Now, similarly, we saw in the last lecture that float is for storing real time numbers like decimal numbers, right? And double was increasing the size or increasing the range. But what if I need even a wider range to store some numbers that are decimal type? For that, we have long along with double. So, float occupies 4 bytes in memory ranging from -3.4 exponent 38 to plus 3.4 exponent 38. Whereas this double, which is going to occupy 8 bytes in memory, its ranges, you can see it is quite higher. But if situation demands even a bigger range, then we can use long double. Okay, so long double increases the range from -1.7 E4932, that is a huge number, to plus 1.7 E4932. So you might use these kind of calculations when you are dealing with some scientific study or microtechnology. Okay, so there you have this concept of long double can be used, and it occupies 10 bytes in memory. So now, yeah. So continuing with the discussion on storage classes. See, a variable storage class tells us where the variable would be stored, what will be the initial value, or we call it the default value for that variable, what is going to be the scope of that variable, that is, where all can you use this variable, right? In which functions the value of this variable would be available. And fourth is what is the life of variable, that is, how long it is going to exist in the memory, and it will be able to be referred by that variable name. So we have four storage classes: automatic storage class, register storage class, static storage class, and external storage class. Let us look at them one by one and look into the details of what is their default value, what is their scope, longevity, and where it is going to be stored. So the first one that we have is automatic storage class. Now by default, this is your storage class. So if you're not specifying any storage class in front of your variable data type, then it is going to be automatic in nature by default. So the storage of this particular thing is in memory, and the initial value is a garbage value. So you cannot predict what is going to be the initial value for this variable. The scope is local to the block in which the variable is defined. So if I'm declaring a variable inside my main function, that then it will be accessible only there. No one else will be able to access this variable or use its value. Okay. Next is the life. Now till the control remains within the block in which the variable is defined, till that time this variable is going to be alive or live. The keyword we use for this is auto. Automatics, short form auto, is used as a keyword here, which tells that this particular variable is belonging to automatic storage class. So this is how you do the declaration: auto int I comma j. Next is register storage class. Now The automatic storage class was storing the value in the memory. Now here we have this concept of storing data in CPU registers, and we all know that CPU registers are accessed very fast. So if there is some critical data that needs to be accessed a lot number of times and time is of criticality, then it is better to store that variable in CPU register. Now since registers are limited, if a CPU register is unavailable, the data is stored as auto despite being declared with the register storage class. So that is one point you need to remember. If a register is available, then yes, the data would be stored in the register. But if it is not available, then you are going to store it in an automatic type only, which is normal memory. The details are the storage is in CPU registers. Initial value is here also garbage value, so we cannot predict it. Scope, local to the block in which the variable is defined. Life is same till control remains within the block in which the variable is defined. And the keyword used here is register. So you declare them as register int I comma j. So here register is a keyword and int is also a keyword. The third one is storage. The third storage class is static storage class. Now this holds the value in between function calls. For now, it might be confusing as to what it means, but we will look at an example and try to understand with that. But let us understand that they are very popular when we are trying to maintain counters or count for a particular thing. This default storage or the storage here is in the memory itself. The default value is 0. Scope is local to the block in which the variable is defined, and life is the value of the variable persists between different function calls. The keyword here is static. Declaration goes as suppose static keyword, int again a keyword, and then I comma j. So here I and j have static storage class. So that's how you declare the variables of static type. I have a function here which is showing you the output for a particular code. Well, let us look at them. Here I have an example of static and the second one is non-static example. When we look at the first example, let's try to remember and compare it with the second one. As we can see in the first one, we are declaring a static int count, and in this non-static one, obviously there is no static keyword preceding int count. Now the mains are exactly the same. Here we are trying to call the printf method, which is an inbuilt method. And inside that we are trying to take help of another method, which is fun method here. So it is called as calling of another function. So we are calling another function named fun. Now what is happening in fun is we are declaring a variable count where we have a statement like count plus plus. Now this plus plus means increment the value of count by 1. So that is what we are trying to do here, and whatever the new value is, that is being returned back to the main function and being printed by the printf method. So that is what is happening. So we are calling the method two times. There are two print statements and each of these print statements is calling the fun method. In the second one, that is the non-static, everything is same, just the difference being that the static keyword is missing prior to the int count. Now the output you will see here is 1 and 2. Let's run through this and try to understand why is this going to be the output. We all know that the execution of the program starts from the main method. We talked about it in the first class of this unit, right? So now there is a statement printf and then percentage %d is the format specifier for your integer values, and then you're calling the function fun. Now as soon as a function is called here, the control shifts to the definition of this method fun. And here you will see that we are declaring a static variable named count and we are initializing it with value 0. Count plus plus makes it a value of 1 because 0 plus 1 will give you 1. So that is the current value. Now from there we are returning this value. So we are returning 1 and that 1 gets printed. So that is why it is there in the output. Now second time there is another printf statement and then again fun method is being called. Now this time again it will see, hey, this is a static member. So it will check whether this variable has already been declared. If yes, then its previous value would be picked and this current initialization would be ignored. So yes, we will find a variable with value 1. So count will have a value 1 from the last execution. So we will pick that value, we will increment it by 1 and return it. So hence the output 2 here. Now if we look at the non-static example, again here printf method will call fun method, and then we go to the definition of fun method here. Int count is equal to 0. So count is being declared here and the value is being initialized to a 0. And then there is a statement count plus plus. This makes the value 1. So one value is returned and it is printed with the help of this format specifier. So we get the first one. Again, this printf method is called. It is invoking another method fun. We are coming here again. But since there is no static word here, so again some memory will be allocated. It will be given a name count and it will be initialized to 0. Count will be made plus plus. So value will become 1 and it will be returned. So hence the output here 1 1. Whereas here we get the output 1 2 because in between function calls of fun there are two calls of function method fun method. In the first one, the value was initialized to 0 and then it was incremented by 1. Now this value will hold. It will not disappear. Static int count will hold this value 1 and the next time this fun method is being called, it will not be redeclared to 0. It will use the previous value of your count variable which was 1 and it will increment it by 1. So now the new value is going to be 2 and that is why we're getting that in the output. I hope this is clear. You can explore more examples of static keyword to understand in a better way. We will be now moving on to the last storage class, that is external storage class. Now they are declared outside of all the functions. They are available to all functions that wish to use them, and they are the storage where they are stored is memory itself. The default value is 0. Scope is global. And what is the lifetime is as long as the program is executing, they will be alive. Okay. And the keyword that is used for them is extern. So you declare it as extern int I. Now, up till now, we have been declaring variables inside the method like main method or inside the fun method like we declared the static count here or int count here. When we talk about global values, we want them to be available to every method. Okay. And so we declare it above every other method or declaration of function or anything so that they can be used universally. That is the utility here. So after covering these four storage classes, let us go to an online compiler and try to use a few of them so that you get familiar with the concept even more. So I will use the online compiler that I used in the last lab also or the last lecture also. Don't forget to change the language to C. By default, it might be C++ here. So select C. That's important. Now this is the code that you receive. I'm going to declare a few variables here. Let the first one be auto. I'm making the value int I is equal to 10. If I try to print this value here inside my printf method, I will use a %d format specifier, which is for integer values, and comma, and I'll use the variable name, which is I. So yes, it should give me an output of 10. That is understood. But what if I do something like this? What if I try and put this in a curly brace? Now this in itself is a block, and we saw that auto variables, they are only they have scope of the block that they are declared in. So this auto int I, this I should be alive or should be accessible only in this particular block. So if I'm trying to print it outside the block, it should give an error. Let's see if that is happening. Yes, so I is undeclared. First use in this function and it is undeclared. So that is a problem. It is happening because the block in which it was declared has ended. So we cannot use it outside the block. What if I try to use it any other function? Say void fun, I'm making a function here. And what if I try to use this value here? So I'm trying to print it instead of this place. I will use this function to print the value. I'm removing these braces, so there is no subblock now. Okay, this is how my code looks like right now. Now I will call this method fun and see if it is capable of printing the value that I want. No, it is still giving you an error. Okay, so you need to be careful that wherever this auto keyword is being used, it means that the variable can only be accessed inside those block only. Outside the block, it does not exist. You cannot use it. Its scope is not there. That is why it says I is undeclared. Okay. For using register CPU register, we will just use this keyword, but we actually won't be able to know whether it is being stored there or not. If it is available, if a CPU register is available, then it will be stored. Now same goes the case. Its scope is also the block that it is declared in. So if I'm trying to access it in the fun method, I won't be able to do that. Why? Because it's outside the block in which it has been declared. Now let's check static. A static also has the scope of a block only. So let's declare the static variable in a method. So static int I is equal to, and suppose I'm initializing it to 20 value. Okay. So I'll print it here and then I'll do a I plus plus. So I plus plus can also be written as I is equal to I plus 1. That's also one way of writing it. So now first 20 should be printed and then I value should be incremented. So I should become 21. Let's call this method here 2 times. So I can check whether the value is being retained or not. So the expected output here would be 20 and then 21. Let's see if that is happening. Yes, so 20 and 21 is getting printed. It shows that I have not used any space in between, so you are probably unable to identify. So I'll rerun it. And you can see that now we are getting the output 20 and 21. Okay, so that is the use of your static keyword, that it is going to hold the value in between the function calls. First time it had the value 20, it printed it. Then it got incremented by 1, so the value became 21. Next time you're coming to the fun method, it is not getting redeclared with 20 value. It is going to hold its previous value and print it. It was 21. So 21 gets printed and now value is incremented to 22. So if I call it the third time, I can expect a value of 22. I hope this is clear. Now let's also look at the utility of global variables. So I'm going to declare a variable int I is equal to 10 here. Since it is being declared above all the methods, so this is going to act like a global method, global variable, sorry. And hence, since it is global, it can be used anywhere. So I can write a print command here and I can print the value here. And also I can maybe make some modifications. So I can do an I is equal to I plus 1 here. And then I can call the fun method. And in the fun method also, let's print the value of I only. So what is the output that you'll expect now? So initially the value is 10. It's coming to main. You're printing the value, so it should be 10. Then you're incrementing the value by 1. So now 10 is becoming 11. Now this I here is, instead of 10, it is now becoming 11. Now in the fun function which is being called from the main, you're again printing I. And I value at that point is 11. So ideally 11 should be printed. Let's see that. Okay, we got a compiler error because we have not closed this method. Now let's run it. And yes, we get the value 10 and 11. So that's why, that's the utility of your global variables. Now, try on more examples of your own, and these are some of the references from where I've picked up the content. If you have any doubts regarding today's lecture, please feel free